What's going on? My name is Amy. I'm a 9 months day trader, and in today's video, I'm sharing with you what happened when I took my day trading entry strategy I've been practicing in the simulator to go live today. So first things first, if you haven't already, check out Amy's Trading Tribe on Telegram, free to join down below, link in the description and the comment section. Secondly, to give it some context, so let's recap a little bit of what's happened in like 9 months. So in the beginning, I had a few profitable months, and I want to just say that I kind of attribute that to luck. The market was super hot when I started trading November, December, and I kind of was just winging it and had some successes. Then I said, okay, let's get a strategy going. And I was kind of all over the place in the beginning, trying to just figure out what kind of trader I was, what kind of strategy I wanted to do, who to follow, who to listen to. And I was absorbing like way too many people's stuff on YouTube and trying to figure things out. And I finally decided like month 4 or 5, I don't exactly remember, but you can go back on this channel and find out when that was. Ross Cameron was like my guy. I'm like, you know what? I used his strategies from like the beginning and had some successes and kind of adapted things. So I tweaked and honed and tried to find my way. And the last couple of months, I've been so close to profit. I've been just about break even. You know, I haven't even been down more than like $40, $45. So I know it was like really close to kind of that next level, or at least you feel like you know what you're doing somewhat, enough to be dangerous. You have a strategy, you can replicate the strategy, you can explain your strategy, not just like, oh, let me click some things and I think that's a strategy. And I had gone through a lot of like figuring out, you know, indicators and what I liked on my charts and what kind of time frames I use. So I decided I think it was about 2 months ago, I kind of found my groove on that. I use a 1-minute chart with a MACD. I use a 10-second chart, and I use it's not set to 5 minutes, but this is normally on 5 minutes. And I kind of got most of that idea from Ross Cameron. People will ask, you know, Robinhood, like, how do you set this custom chart for the 10 seconds? Because most brokers don't allow 10 seconds. I don't know why. I think 30 is like the minimum. And on Robinhood, you can sign up for free, open like an account for $1, or put $1 in it, and then you can get their legend charts. And there's custom timeframes in there. So that's how I use that, and you guys can't really see all of it. But they recently added, which is cool, they recently added these, let's see if I can put my hand there. You see on the side, there's some stuff moving that's like horizontal lines. Those are volume profile levels. So you can now add that on the Robinhood chart, which is pretty cool. That's actually helping me a lot, along with using level 2 data, which I pay for monthly on TradeStation. That was another thing. So like 2 months ago, or about, I think it's close to that now, I switched over from Thinkorswim to TradeStation. And it's like, whenever you do that, you have to adjust, right? There's a learning curve. You're learning a new platform. You're trying to figure things out. You have to kind of redo your muscle memory things because you're clicking in different places. You have to set up hotkeys if you're using that. So all of these things kind of have culminated to bring me to a certain point now where this last couple of weeks, I didn't have a great start to August, and I felt like, okay, I need to take a step back. I need to practice and actually use a simulator so that I can just kind of see, this strategy that I felt like I was leaning into, but was having difficulty executing. I was like, if I just do it in a simulator, kind of stick it out there for a little bit and test without fear of losing money or hesitating to get in trades or whatever, then maybe I can really see if this is gonna work, And I'm glad I took this route, and maybe your route's different, but I'm glad that I took the route of using real money since the beginning, because I knew full well what it would be like trading in a simulator. I knew that there would be a difference. I wasn't trading I didn't, think, okay, because I'm doing something good in the simulator, that's going to automatically transfer when you go live. but it did help me to test the strategy and not feel restricted about it, you know, because you're putting real money on the line, you're kind of holding yourself back sometimes of doing that. So the last couple of weeks, that's what I was doing, and I was testing this. And if you go back on my last day trading video, I talked about an entry strategy, and I actually showed a live trade live in the simulator of it actually playing out. So today was the first day I actually put it to the test. I decided not to trade on Monday because I was all weekend in Chicago. I live in Las Vegas, but I was all weekend in Chicago, and I came home on a 8 a.m. arrival flight. So you can imagine how early I was up. And I was like, today is not that day. So I was like, Tuesday, we'll try this out. So I went live today and basically used this strategy that I talked about previously, and I'll recap it in just a sec, but used that. And there was one difference about trading with live money versus me in the sim. Was I noticed, because I actually took a trade in the sim Friday at the airport, and it was easy for me to add to the position in terms of quick adds. Like if I put in 5 shares at a certain level, I'd say, you know what, let's bump that to 10 or 15 here, you know, and I kind of had different levels I was increasing my share size easily for. When I went live today, I'm putting in multiple limit orders using my mouse and using the ladder on TradeStation, which they call the matrix. And I kind of was just like click for 5, 5, 5. And I wished I had just gone a little bit more all in, because I was feeling pretty confident about the stock I was trading this morning, which I think was, LASE. And there was this beautiful window right after the open where it kind of found its groove and it started to go up. And I forget which one I was watching initially. I was watching a different stock, and it sold off at the open and then halted down. So I'm glad I didn't go in that one. But this one, I was like, okay, here's my strategy. It's the doors are opening, right? The MACD was like starting to open, and I was like, okay, we're gonna start putting in limit orders. So I'm doing that on the ladder. And all of a sudden I get filled for the higher priced one, because I had a couple in different price points. And so I'm like, okay, I'm in the trade. And I kind of just let it do its thing. And I was like, let's just see what direction it's going to go after I get filled for that initial 5 shares. And then it looked good. Like it looked like buyers were stepping in, people were jumping in, the price was jumping up, the bid was jumping up. And so I kind of followed it up the chart. I canceled my other orders, and I was like, okay, we're going to wait for like micro pullbacks. We'll put in a couple orders here and here, and eventually got filled for these other shares. And then I scaled out once. I sold 5 shares, locked in, a little bit of profit, and then kind of let some other things ride, got filled one more time. So in all, I had like 20 shares on this trade and scaled in and scaled out. And I just played it out just like I explained and showed you guys in the video about the day trading entry strategy. Like I think it was like literally the last video I made. And you can watch that in real time and see what I'm doing. But that it played out and ended up, locking it down. And I think I didn't get out at the very peak, but it was pretty darn close. I think initially I started buying at $4.80, and the last highest close price I sold at was like $5.20. Now I didn't hold that whole time, that would have been a sweet, 40-cent gain. I was selling a little bit at a time, but holding on to some. And so that actually has helped me trade so much better, because I used to get kind of freaked out. Like, okay, I have to be perfect. I have to get in at the right time. I have to hold it for the right amount of time, or make sure I get out, at this certain level. And when you buy and sell just the one time, it's very challenging to try to nail the best, profits per share, because the stock could swing violently. And then maybe you were like, oh, I better get out, and you sell too soon. And then you're like, oh, I should have waited. I should have stayed in the move. The way I'm doing it, where I'm putting in multiple entries and I'm putting in multiple exits, is helping me to spread that out, and it's helping me to increase the profits on a winning trade, of course. Now, had this been a losing trade, I wouldn't have kept adding, say I'd gotten filled at those lower price points in the beginning, and then it just kept like going down. I had a mental stop, because for these kinds of trades, I don't use the actual hard stop. just the way the platform's set up. It's a little bit tricky to actually do it on the ladder matrix, whatever you want to call it, because it tries to do it at a market order for the stop. And unfortunately, if you set your limit order for like a time frame of day plus, like you're including pre-market hours, they don't talk to each other for some reason, whatever. So I just use a mental stop. So I didn't have to worry about that today. I was either flat or I was in the green the whole time for this trade. And that's another thing too, is that the way I trade with this scaling in, scaling out kind of strategy, and buying on these like small dips, small micro pullbacks, is that if this setup fails, I will know it almost right away. That is the beauty of this strategy that I've been refining and honing. And, it's not like you have to hold and hope and pray when you're in the trade that, it goes your way. It's like, no, if I get filled, and even if I get filled at multiple entries and I think, oh, okay, they're fairly close together. They're usually like a couple cents apart, depending on the price of the stock. I'm not going to stay in if it's going to dump at a certain mental stop level. So I'll look at like the 10-second chart over there, and I will find these areas where I think, okay, if it fails at this support, that's it. It's not going to work. It's not the right time, or the stock could just be going downhill from here. And that's actually what ended up happening on Lays this morning. Was I took this one, in and out trade. It took me about 3 minutes all in all to scale in and scale out. And I looked and I waited. I was like, oh, maybe there'll be another opportunity. I should have bought more shares and all this sort of thing. And I just kept watching it. And unfortunately, it just continued to sell off after it hit that high of like 520 or whatever it was. Actually, I think it ended up going on to like 530s or something. But then it just started turning around and it kept selling. And the MACD turned negative. And thank goodness, that's one of my kind of hard rules, is that I don't get in a trade if the MACD is negative. I'm cautious when it's starting to come up and it's starting to open. Like, right now, this particular one over here is negative, but I'm watching the lines, and if it's just kind of at the flat, but it looks like I see, volume coming in on the level 2 and I see the bid, increasing and stuff like that, I might jump the gun slightly as it's flat going to positive. But for the most part, this trade, Lays, when I jumped in it the very first time at 480, it was wide open and the lines were like, and for me, I think that's such a good indicator that that's the right entry time, because I've tried to get in other trades where it's like iffy on the MACD and then it starts to turn like as soon as you're getting in. Those trades usually end up failing because what it's telling you is there's way more sellers than buyers, right? And eventually that price is just not going to hold. It's going to knock out all the, the bids, and the price is just going to dump. So yeah, so that's kind of something I noticed with the trade today. It was like, MACD was shooting to the moon. And when I looked at it to see if I could get another, trade on it, it never came back to that. Once it started curling over, it was like, done deal, goodbye, find the next one. And I looked, and unfortunately, a lot of stuff at the open just ended up selling off. This one was just a kind of random, I say, luck of the draw, because it did have a nice window for me, but that window was over by 6:36 a.m. or 9:36 a.m. Eastern. And after that, it was like, nope, not going to happen. So yeah, didn't see any other opportunities. Took my $3.25 profit, baby. Heck yeah. And walked away in the green today. So first live trade of actually executing this thing I'd been practicing in the sim. And I'll say, I really recommend, though, for people who are new, this might sound like controversial or something, but I still think you should use real money from the very beginning. I think the sim is better meant for practicing, back testing, trying new things, and treating it as if it's your account. Like, don't be, buying 5,000 shares of something if you normally buy 50. But I think when you're new, because this is what I did when I was trying to figure it out, a couple months back, just trade really small, one share. Buy one share of something, test, because you'll still kind of feel the emotions. You'll feel like it's real money, because it is. And you're not going to run home crying if you've lost $1 a share. But can you imagine if you're new and you bought 50 shares and you lost $1 a share? That's not really fun, right? Or 500 shares. You just have to kind of think that through. So that's kind of my thing, is if you're new, use real money. Go to 2 or 5 shares, but start with something that feels tangible, feels real, and you can actually get the sense of something coming up, emotions wise, that'll help you become a better trader faster, in my opinion. So that's kind of the recap for today. Hope you guys learned something. Like I said, go back on the video prior to this and you can see in real time what I was doing that I turned into a live trade today, but what I was practicing in the simulator, and I showed you guys on screen how it played out. And actually it just happened to play out perfectly. It was kind of near the close when I took this practice trade to show you on video. But today it was just after the open. So feel free to come check out Amy's Trading Tribe down below, link in the description and comments, and I'll see you on the next one.